Imagine a world in which zombies have taken over and are rampaging through the streets, wreaking havoc and devouring people wherever they go. Most people would consider that a living hell, but not this guy, who is practically a zombie based on how he is living. He lives in a never-ending cycle of work, and he has to go to work again tomorrow. It all began 3 years ago when he landed his dream job. He expected everything to be sunshine and rainbows, and it appeared that way. Everyone was friendly and upbeat, and he even met an absolute knockout on his first day. Tendo appeared to have everything going for him, but reality is often disappointing. That day, following the customary office party, the mood abruptly shifts and the other employees go into drone mode. They worked 2 consecutive all-nighters at work, and he wasn't allowed to leave until 2 days later, on the day he realized his corporation was going to exploit him. He wakes up the next morning with a sudden lack of enthusiasm for his job, but he already went to university for it, so he might as well finish it. The company has some great policies, such as no vacation days, unpaid overtime, underpaid workers, and a screaming man-baby for a boss. What person wouldn't want to work here? Not to mention the best part, crippling health issues that no one cares about. By the second year, Tendo is beginning to succumb to his crippling health issues. And to make matters worse, his boss assigns him yet another pile of work. Suri and the prospect of having a chance with her are the only things keeping him sane. But things are only getting worse for my guy. Salary is already the CEO of the company, and with him goes Tendo's last shred of sanity. I'm not sure why he's still working there. He's gone so far off the deep end that he walks into traffic in the hopes of meeting a truck. But he's out of luck. He can't get a different job because all the others will be just as bad, and leaving will only make things worse for the other employees. Tendo is really being pushed by the 3rd year. It's gotten so bad that he tried to train just to avoid going to work. And this is where he is right now, in full-fledged zombie mode. He can only think about work right now, and everything is in black and white. He wakes up the next morning with a panic attack because he doesn't want to go to work. He then gets dressed and prepares to leave for work, but as he drags himself out of the house, he notices a letter in his mailbox. He forgot to pay for his parking pass, so he trudges over to the building manager's office to explain why. As he approaches the door, he continues to knock, but there is no response. He notices a half-open door and enters to speak with the building manager. What he discovers is not what he expected. He sees the building manager neck-deep in someone's goots, which is the first sign of choler he's seen in a long time. He flees the room and attempts to flee the building, only to find more zombies waiting for him outside. He turns around and runs upstairs, thinking to himself, what am I going to do? If this continues, I'll be late for work. But then he sees a plane crash overhead and has an epiphany. All the bosses who made his life a living hell are probably dead. He no longer has to go to work. His life now has meaning, and he can finally see all the colors in the world. He sits on a rooftop, thinking about all the things he will be able to do now that he has more free time. He then considers her salary and wonders how she is. He decides to confess to her, even if it means his death. What does it matter if she was the CEO's sidekick? He probably won't be able to outrun the zombies with his size, so he's dead by now. With that, he sets off on his bike to find out where she lives. When he arrives, he discovers the boss's shoes and the man standing zombified. So he takes the opportunity to resign, and his body slams him out the window. Unfortunately, Salary was also present, and she has also become a zombie. So, with tears in his eyes, he confesses to her and flees to avoid being eaten. That night, he considers what he will do from now on. Given the state of the world, he may die at any time, so why not make the most of it? He uses this to create a bucket list of things he wants to do before he dies. Tendo wakes up screaming the next day from a nightmare about his inhumane working conditions, but relief washes over him as he realizes his life has improved significantly. It's the zombie apocalypse, and he's ready for it. With his newfound zest for life, he's finally been able to clean out his entire room for the first time in years, and he's never felt better. He takes a beer from the fridge and savors it as his first beer of freedom. Meanwhile, the news is covering the story as it happens. The city is in disarray. There are fires everywhere, and the newsroom is in danger of being overrun. And despite everything, the newswoman is still doing her job. Tendo watches as the news broadcast cuts out, knowing that the world has objectively gone to hell, but that's not his problem right now. All he cares about today is drinking beer and lounging around to make up for the years of torture he has subjected himself to. When he goes to the fridge to get another one, he is confronted with a harsh reality. He is out of beer. This is the absolute worst thing that could have happened to him today. He was going to lie lie down, but now he has to go get some more beer, and it's not going to be an easy journey. But what kind of lazy day would it be if he couldn't drink beer? So, as much as he wants to stay put, he'll have to. While he is having his moral quandary in another room, a couple is freaking out about the apocalypse, as one would expect. A man tells her that if they can just hang on for one more day, they might be saved, but no one will come to their aid. He steps out onto the balcony and begs someone, anyone, to come and help him. As he says this, he locks his gaze on Tendo, who is shimmying down a pipe. The man is terrified and tells Tendo to come in while it's still safe. But Tendo refuses. For the time being, he only needs to go grab a few items. He then introduces himself as their neighbor. The man is taken aback by Tendo's casual demeanor while suspended from a pipe, but he introduces himself as Kosaka. Tendo wants to be nice, so he offers to get them some noodles and toilet paper since he's going to the convenience store anyway. As Tendo races his bike down the street, the zombies take notice and begin to pursue him. He realizes that if he is surrounded, he may perish here, but he can't go the whole day without beer. So this is a necessary action. When he arrives at the convenience store, there is a bike outside with a camera on it. He doesn't notice because he is too preoccupied with getting beer. So he pries open the doors and starts singing his beer song while shopping. Then he notices a girl standing near the fridge, and the song he was singing makes him cringe. He tries to play it off by acting as if nothing happened, but the girl remains silent. Things will only get more awkward if he remains silent, so he continues to speak, but she simply walks past him. So he tries to get her contact information, but she finally says something. He put his life in danger just to get some beers, and he didn't even get any water to help with the hangover. Some women's survival skills are so poor that they are a liability to them. To make matters worse, he left the door halfway open, allowing the zombies to enter. Tendo tries to get in front of her to protect her, but she pulls him back just as a truck smashes through the wall, killing the zombies by chance. But he did learn some lessons from it. He should always close the door and assess the risk before doing something. He'd like to see that girl again, but now isn't the time. His bike was destroyed by the truck, so he needs to flee. But he's not going to be able to outrun the zombies, so he'll have to come up with another plan. Fortunately for him, there is a scooter lying nearby which he can use to escape. He's upgraded his vehicle, which makes him think there are a lot of vehicles with keys still in them since the apocalypse began during rush hour. So maybe there's something better out there. And then, out of the corner of his eye, he notices something. He now owns a hot rod. He eventually returns to the apartment building and visits Kosaka's apartment. But what he discovers is a bloodbath. They're not likely to join him anytime soon. That night, he was reminded that he could die at any time. But even if that's the case, he still wants to live life to the fullest and do everything he couldn't do while working. He thinks long and hard about what he wants to do and writes it down. The next day, we see the girl in a penthouse where she starts her day with a 10-kilometer treadmill run. She's taking a serious stance on surviving the zombie apocalypse. She begins analyzing the zombies' movement patterns, but she needs to go down there and see the zombies in order to collect data and supplies. That's why she was at the convenience store earlier when she met Tendo. She was already analyzing him, and the truck that crashed into the store was predicted. She then considers the footage she obtained of Tendo and concludes that perhaps his way of doing things isn't so bad after all. Another group of survivors includes a young girl who is grieving the loss of her father, and the club manager is attempting to console her. He tells her she's done great by holding out until now, but one of his men approaches him and informs him that the zombies have returned. The manager tells the girl that he needs to go do something, but will definitely return to her. They charge out into the ensuing horde in a badass manner, and they begin to fight to protect everyone left in the club. Meanwhile, Tendo was out here having the time of his life on his new motorcycle. He's arrived in the Shinjuku district in search of his best friend, Kensho. Tendo had been trying to grow a cool beard earlier that day, and to speed it up, he tried drawing it on with a marker, but it didn't end up looking like he wanted it to. So he gives up and just shaves it off. He is thinking about what to do today when he notices that his phone is receiving messages again. He's overjoyed to see this because it means the internet is back up and running. He hasn't had a chance to talk to his old friends since he started working 3 years ago, so he'd love to catch up with them. He sends messages to all of his friends and waits for responses. But then he realizes that the only reason the internet is back up and running is because network traffic is down, which means that most of his friends have died by now. His realization makes him very sad. All those years of skipping out on socializing with friends in order to work overtime. What a waste of time. He continues to scroll through his contacts until he comes across one of his friends, Kensho. He knows this guy is a fighter, so he wouldn't just lay down and die like that. Meanwhile, Kensho is about to collapse and die. He's been trapped in this room with nothing but water for 3 days, and the hallway is too crowded with zombies for him to have any hope of escaping. Even worse, She's trapped in here with a zombie woman, and the only thing that kept him alive was his love for bondage. He sits there thinking, this is it, his life flashing before his eyes, and he sees memories of Tendo from when they were in college. Tendo called Kensho at that moment, and he was surprised to see that they had received a call. Tendo inquired about Kensho's location, and he stated that he was in Shinjuku, but there's no way Tendo could make it all the way there without being eaten by zombies. But that won't stop him, which is why Tendo went to Shinjuku. On the way, he recalls meeting Kensho for drinks, but Kensho was a successful real estate contractor with good pay, high praise from his bosses, and an actual love life. Kensho tells Tendo that he should probably quit his job, but Tendo is still too far down the rabbit hole to notice that he is correct. Instead, he becomes enraged and ends their brief encounter. He never got the chance to apologize for it, so he'll make it a point to do so now. Meanwhile, the previous manager is nearing the end of his life, and as the zombies approach, he waits for death. However, a distant car horn is enough to distract the zombies and cause them to leave him alone. It also attracts the zombies, who are holding Kensho in that room, allowing Tendo to go meet him. Kensho finally notices that the zombies have vanished, and just then, Tendo appears and begins yelling at the top of his lungs, apologizing for not following his advice and becoming jealous of him. But all of his yelling attracts more zombies, forcing them to flee to the top of the roof. They make it up there, but the zombies are right on their tail, trapping them. Kensho believes this is the end of his journey, but Tendo isn't about to give up. Tendo tells Kensho that they should jump across the rooftops, but he's not sure he can do it. Tendo goes for it and succeeds. But now it's Kensho's turn, but he refuses. He apologizes to Tendo for making him jealous at the time. The truth is that he despised his job. He was no better than scum for forcing people to sign bad contracts. So he boasted about all the wonderful things he had to deal with. He'd always wanted to be a stand-up comic. Tendo assures him that it is not too late, and Kensho realizes that he does not have to give up. So he starts running and jumping, and for some reason, he takes off all his clothes halfway through and manages to complete the entire jump. As a result, he ends up hanging off a massive ledge, but Tendo pulls him up just in time. But the worst thing that could happen happens while he's being dragged up. He scrapes his nuts. The two then spend the night drinking naked, as all homies do. Tento is on the roof playing a zombie video game when he dies. So, if he rolls back in his hammock and Kensho has been cooking for him, Tendo sees the food is the best he's ever had. Even though he's impressed by the food, he also remarks that Kensho is probably good at everything, which explains why he's so popular with the ladies. Tendo's lack of cooking ability, according to Kensho, is probably why he hasn't had much luck in his love life. Tendo swears he'll get a date today, but his options are, shall we say, less than ideal. Later, Kensho examines Tendo's list, which is somewhat unrealistic. Seriously, what are his chances of meeting a flight attendant in the apocalypse, let alone having the opportunity to wine and dine with them? That would necessitate some cosmic alignment and voodoo. But regardless, Tendo will do whatever he wants, even if it appears unrealistic. That's fine with Kensho, but the list doesn't even have 100 items on it. So Kensho begins to add his own dream of becoming a stand-up comic to the list, and Tendo must follow suit. But because Tendo saved his life, he's on board for whatever he can think of. In that case, Tendo asks if they can go to the mall to get a big flat-screen TV, so they hop in the hot rod and go get one. But before they get there, they come across a flaming dead end, complete with a zombie firefighter. To make matters worse, a truck comes barreling towards them, and Kensho is terrified. Tendo has a flashback to what happened on his beer run and decides to jump the tanker. Yes, it's an insane idea, but I don't see Kensho coming up with anything. They manage to jump it, but the tanker explodes in a fiery inferno, forcing them to seek refuge in an underground mall. But the mall is overrun with zombies, and fleeing is no longer an option. So they get off the motorcycle and run to a nearby store, leaving the door slightly open. They are pursued by zombies, but they make it through and slam the door shut on the zombies' fingers. When a flashlight shines on them, they turn around to see 3 women and 1 man cowering in the back. They are initially defensive because they do not know whether Tendo and Kensho are infected or not. Kensho is thankful that there are other survivors after saying they aren't. The girl doesn't understand why he's so grateful when they're trapped inside with zombies on all sides, but it's a convenience store, so they won't go hungry anytime soon. If they have to go through this, they're not going to do it sober. They begin shopping for food and liquor, then sit down and share it. One of the girls requests that they introduce themselves. Kensho and Tendo introduce themselves, and the guy in the corner remains terrified. As a result, The girls are introduced as Reika, Maki, and Yukari. When Kensho asks how they know each other, they say they're co-workers and their flight had just landed in Japan when the whole saga began. Bear flight attendants. Tendo realizes that this is his final opportunity to wine and dine with a flight attendant, but they are clearly upset about the situation. He also realizes at that moment that he has no game. He walks up to Eureka and attempts to converse with her, but his lack of game is obvious. He begins to consider what to do and turns to Kensho for assistance, but Kensho is already there, raising Maki. Kensho looks at Tendo and gives him a devious smile as he stands there watching the master work his magic. Tendo is at a loss for what to do, so he tries to be funny by snorting an entire bottle of alcohol, which gets everyone in the mood to party. Later, Tendo is puking his guts out when Eureka arrives to check on him, and he believes he has a chance. Eureka is still drinking and is currently directing her rage at the cowering man. And what the hell? This guy got bitten and didn't tell anyone. As Rika continues to ramble, the dude appears from beneath her, and she suspects he's trying to eat her out, but she's not going to let him. He does want to eat her, but in a more literal sense. Her screams can be heard throughout the store, waking up Kensho and Maki. Maki's brains have been screwed out, so she couldn't care less about the scream she just heard. Tendo and Eureka are still in the bathroom. She gently disappoints him by informing him that she already has a boyfriend. Kensho and Maki arrive to check on Reika, and Maki remains dazed and confused. When they discover Reika has turned into a zombie, she lunges at Maki and rips her face off. She then lunges at Kensho, but he uses a suitcase to knock her legs out. But what happened to the old man? Tendo and Eureka are talking about their jobs, and she tells him about an old man who made her question every decision that led her to become a flight attendant. The old man comes down the stairs and bites her just as they are finally bonding and talking about their dreams. Tendo knocks the man down the stairs before they can react, but he doesn't want to leave her here. However, he has no choice because she is about to turn, and the old man is still present. He begins to cry as he flees and meets Kensho, who has a surprise for him. He was able to take the flat-screen television. Tendo is reflecting on what just happened as the two escaped on their motorcycle. He'll make sure he remembers what his dream was, and he'll add it to the list. Tendo was once compared to a young John Wick. He'd take on upperclassmen like it was nothing out of the ordinary, all for the sake of a nice dog. It was something the superhero did at the time. He does, however, awaken from his dream. Later, Kensho checks the news and confirms that Japan is completely screwed. The military, on the other hand, was able to secure some of the more remote villages in the mountains. Tendo believes his family is safe because they are in one of Japan's most remote villages. Tendo later makes a declaration while assisting Kensho in dyeing his hair for his new beginning. He's going to be known as John Wick. Kensho is skeptical of his plans to become someone who goes around saving people from zombies. Tendo, for one thing, does not even have a gun, but he's already planned a solution, and a new item has been added to the list: becoming a superhero. Later, the two go to the aquarium to find Tendo's plan, which is in disarray because all of the workers have abandoned it. They look around for a while until Tendo finds exactly what he was looking for. Meanwhile, a bus full of people is stuck in zombie traffic, and the driver informs them that they must wait out the horde. But at the very least, they're in a sealed bus, and no zombies will be able to get in. What the hell is going on? Now, because of this guy, all of the bus passengers are fleeing for their lives, and they are being slaughtered. This one girl has made it this far, and is running towards the aquarium. When she sees it, she believes she will be safe once she enters. But then horror movie logic kicks in, and she collapses. Unfortunately for her, Usain Bolt was among the zombies, and he's making a beeline for her. Tendo runs out of the aquarium as she is about to become zombie food and tackles Bolt, launching him a good 10 meters away. This was his secret weapon. He borrowed a shark suit from the aquarium to protect himself from zombie bites. And if a shark can't get through this, no zombie can. He has achieved his superhero ambition. He notices more people in need of assistance and directs them all to the aquarium for safety. He notices his second crush among the crowd, but he doesn't have time to think about that because Bolt is back for round 2, and while the sweet may be able to keep bites out, it's still going to hurt like hell. He is swarmed by the Olympic team after falling to the ground, and Kensho simply says, "You are on your own, buddy." Tendo eventually throws the zombies off the bridge and into the river, and fortunately for him, they hadn't trained for the triathlon. Kensho greets him as if he hadn't just left him out there with his back to the aquarium. Tendo then approaches her, and while he only wanted to talk, she begins roasting my man's entire existence. Kensho attempts to defend Tendo's honor, but the roasting has gone too far. Following that, there is a loud crash sound heard throughout the aquarium. Tendo and Kensho decide to investigate, but when they find the source of the noise, they discover something horrifying. When the zombies couldn't find any swimmers, they summoned a shark. When the shark starts chasing them, they flee to warn everyone else. Tendo tries to fight from behind, but then he realizes it's a shark with legs. You never mess with a shark that has legs. They are cornered in a room with more zombies and begin running for the emergency exit. But then this girl grabs Tendo's crush, pauses for a second, and pushes her aside because she's afraid. Tendo's crush is almost certainly over. Kensho tries to go help her after realizing she isn't in there with them, but the door has been warped too much for it to open. He looks around to see what Tendo should do, but Tendo has already left to assist on the other end. Tendo's crush is confronted by a massive shark, and she can only blame herself for failing to realize that you should never stay in large groups during a zombie chase. Tendo, on the other hand, has not accepted her death. As a result, he leaps from an air vent and attacks the shark. She is astounded that he would risk his life to save her. Even after the incident, she gave him a roast. What is his motivation for returning? Tendo, on the other hand, doesn't need a reason to help someone. He's just doing what he wants to do. She is astounded by Tendo's fortitude and asks if he has a plan yet, but he hasn't come up with one. As they flee, she devises a strategy to defeat the shark. Because sharks are sensitive to electric charges, shocking them would cause them to become confused and unable to attack them. Tendo is smacked through a wall while distracting the shark, and Kensho is trying to figure out how to save him before he becomes shark food. So he devises a foolproof plan. He's going to use his butt to entice the shark. However, once the shark swallows the bait, he begins to regret his decision. Tendo was able to get back up thanks to the distraction, and the girl has finally found some batteries, so she throws them to him, and he uses them to stun the shark. They walk out together after escaping, and Kensho asks if she isn't going to follow the other group. But she says she's done with groups for the time being, and she still doesn't understand why Tendo would put his life in danger for her. Tendo, on the other hand, claims that she is now someone precious to him and that he would save her regardless. This irritates her, and she eventually agrees to give Tendo her contact information. Tendo will then travel to Gamma, his parents' village. This marked the conclusion of Episode 5. Thank you for tuning in. More information is available by subscribing.